so basically what you have here is the world as we know it, and there's the dome with the sun and the moon on it and the stars, and then if you look outside what you know, well then you're out into this cosmic space. And this is something Carl Jung was very interested in. When you're feeling brave, you put a foot or two out where you don't understand. Like you jump right out there, well, then maybe you fall off the edge of the earth, and I wouldn't precisely recommend that, especially if you do it accidentally. Dostoevsky said that in Notes from the Underground, a great, great book. And God said, like, go kind of half insane and smash everything up. That's just too much, man. Like, you'd be, well, what would you be? What would you do? Would you just sit on the couch and watch TV? I mean, you'd be, I don't know what, you'd be cutting yourself just for entertainment in no time flat. This is an oversimplification, but a useful one. You keep updating yourself constantly. There's this play written by a German named Goethe. I can never say that properly. It's Johann van Goethe, and I can't say it, but he wrote this play called Faust, and then Faust II. He has a character in there, Mephistopheles, and Mephistopheles is the devil. And it's like Ivan Karamazov in the Brothers Karamazov. Look at the world. I mean, you look around the world, it's nothing but a bloodbath. And God said, amazing, good God, who put this mess together? And they say, no, enough of this. I'm going to make everyone suffer as much as I possibly can before I say goodbye to this place. So anyways, but in this, God says that it was good. And it's a straight and narrow road. I'm not an optimist by nature. Can we have our cake and eat it too? What the hell else do you have to do that could possibly be better than that? Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And there's this guy I read about, this is amazing, and I don't remember his name, but he found out about this worm that was called the guinea worm. And guinea worm is a really horrible thing, and you can look it up if you want, but I'll tell you a little bit about it, even though it's very distasteful. So, a guinea worm is a parasite that lives in Africa, and it burrows under your skin, and it's quite long. It's about that long, and it's about that wide, and so it'll burrow underneath your leg, and then it's in there, and maybe it pokes its little head out a hole, which is one of its delightful tendencies. And then if you want to pull it out, it breaks, right? Because otherwise you'd just pull it out and it would be dead, and so it doesn't like that, so it just breaks off. And many people had this horrible disease, and well, you can't imagine what that would be like because you're part of the 1% and you live in North America, and thank God for that. But, just a little you don't even want to think about it, let alone have it. And he went to Africa and wiped the damn thing out. It's like, well, great, it seems to me the planet's a lot better off without any guinea worms on it. Even though that's like guinea worm genocide talk, I'm still, pretty happy about it. And so that was one guy who thought, well, we don't need these things, and yeah, well, fair enough, and yeah, well, so good for him, he can die. That's a good aim, I think. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. So you have the sun here, and then the moon here, as far as I can tell. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think this is the moon over here, and that's part of the Sistine Chapel. Man does not live by bread alone. It's not just beauty, it's more than beauty. It's that which feeds the soul. And you can't crack the damn thing without knowing the underlying stories, and that's really too bad because it's utterly profound. And Old Testament God, and don't mess around with him, right? Because he'll give you good smiting if you get out of line. There's no doubt about that. And he's kind of an arbitrary character, and if you step out of line, you're going to get flattened, and God doesn't care. Nietzsche really admired the Old Testament. You better pay attention, though, because otherwise you're going to be in real trouble. Yeah, really? Some of the things that happened were so brutal. It's just absolutely unimaginable. And, well, unless you imagine it. So there's God again with the sun behind him, because he's associated with the solar consciousness, and he's creating all these strange, wonderful creatures, and it's a. And people say, well, the idea of God as an old man in the sky, let's say, that's primitive. It's much more better to think about it as a much more better, Jesus. Anyways, and God blessed them. Well, that's a good thing. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And there's God creating Adam and Eve, and they're looking pretty happy about the whole thing. And that's Michelangelo's famous Sistine Chapel representation. And what the hell is God doing in this thing? You know, I mean, what is this exactly? And so there's been some interesting answers to that, and this is one of them. The precise analogy between this structure and the brain bisected down the middle. And of course, Michelangelo was one of the first people who did detailed dissections. And so Michelangelo had put God inside the brain for some reason. We don't understand it all. And the idea that we understand it is a very stupid idea. And so it's quite interesting, I think, that, and maybe Michelangelo had enough gall to do that. It's certainly possible. I mean, he had enough gall to do dissections when the cost of that was death. You know, he had to rob corpses, essentially, to go and do it. So he wasn't, I would say, not particularly politically correct. So, and that's a funny one. I had to throw that in. I don't know how many of you know this, but there's this joke in the atheist community. I think it might have been started by Richard Dawkins, but that might be wrong, that it was just as reasonable to believe in the flying spaghetti monster as it was to believe in God. And that's the flying spaghetti monster, by the way. And so that's called touched by his noodly appendage. And anyways, I like that too, you know.